Hi, this is a quick demonstration of how to use the TX Modular System. I'm using the latest version, which is 087. The TX Modular is Mac software built with SuperCollider. It can be used to create many different kinds of digital musical instruments. To begin with, I'll start the program. You'll see the SuperCollider window open and then the TX Modular audio setup. Here you can use the default settings or change the sound card and its settings manually. Then press Start Audio Engine and the main TX Modular window will open up. Along the top of the window are buttons for controlling the overall system, such as the main Help button and buttons to save and open files. There's also a Quit button. If you click on the Help button, it opens the main Help file index. This has links to all the other Help files. If you open Help file 3, Building a System, it shows you what all the different screen controls do. I'll close the Help window now and go back to the main screen. The second row of buttons are for jumping between different windows in the system. For now, I'll go to the Modules and Channels window. The button is highlighted in yellow to show it's selected. For this demonstration, I'm going to build a simple system with a few modules connected together. Modules are tools such as waveform synths, filters, reverbs, delays, compressors, low-frequency oscillators, sequencers, and so on. You connect the modules together using channels, which is just like using a mixing desk. One thing that's new in version 087 is the sliding panels. There's a white bar on the right of each panel which you can drag left or right, and there are small coloured buttons which are presets for changing the width. In the first and third panels there are menu buttons to change the panel. For now, I'll use the plus source button. This is for adding a new source module. Source modules are modules that produce signals, either audio signals or control signals. The small blue arrows are for opening and closing all the different module categories. If I close them all, you can see all the category names. Audio modules are blue, control modules are green. Under the category Audio Drone is the waveform module. If I press the Add button, that creates a new module. Now Waveform 1 appears in the second panel. This shows all the controls for the waveform. There's a Help button at the top which opens a help file specifically for this module, which explains all the different parameters. The third panel relates to the channels, and all the channels appear in the fourth panel. Here channel 1 is shown. This was automatically created when I added the Waveform 1 module, and it's needed to connect the module to other things in the system. The channel has a source and a destination, and it connects them together. Here the source is the waveform module, so now I'll connect it to the main outputs by adding them as the destination of the channel. Once the channel is connected, a level slider appears, so I can bring the volume up. Now we can hear the waveform and see the level on the channel meters. I'll change the type of waveform to FM, which means frequency modulation. And I can change the frequency. Okay, I'll mute the channel for now. One thing to point out is that the waveform module is an audio module since it creates an audio signal. The channel it's in is called channel 1A, meaning it's an audio channel, and it's coloured blue for audio. Now I'll add another module into the system. This time I'll add an LFO, a low frequency oscillator, and it's in the category Control Modulation. The LFO is a control module and it sends out a control signal. Control signals can't be heard like the audio ones can. They are used only inside the system for controlling other modules. I'll show you in a minute how that works. In this case, the LFO can control the frequency of the waveform. So in the channel for the LFO, I set the destination to the waveform module. And I select frequency as the destination bus. A bus is something that carries signals. You can see the waveform has quite a few different control buses where I could connect the LFO, but this time we want to connect it to the frequency bus. I'll also bring the channel level up, and now you can see the LFO signal in the meter. Now when I unmute the waveform channel, the frequency is modulated by the LFO. In the LFO module box, I can also change the frequency and the waveform of the LFO. Changing the LFO channel level changes the amount of frequency modulation. If I set the LFO channel level to 0, the frequency stays at what it is set to in the waveform module. As I increase the channel level, the waveform frequency gets pushed up by the LFO. There's also an invert button on the LFO channel. If I turn invert on, the LFO now becomes a negative signal which moves the waveform frequency downwards instead of upwards. If I turn invert off again, then the modulation is now positive. If I open the waveform module, I can change the minimum and maximum frequency. By default, it's a very wide range from the lowest to the highest MIDI note. But there are some other presets, or you can change it manually. This means, like many things in the TX Modular, you can customize the settings to exactly what you need. For now, I'll turn down the level of waveform channel 1. Now I'll add a second LFO, this time an LFO curve module. This has a drawable curve, which I'll edit in a minute. I'll set the LFO curve channel so that the destination is channel 1 level. This is the level of the channel with the waveform in it. If I bring the level up, you can hear the LFO curve changing the waveform level. I can now use the mouse to edit the LFO curve to get different effects. Instead of editing by hand, this button lets you draw lines and curves. And there's a button here which allows you to quantize the lines to the grid. I'll show you how that works. I'll mute the waveform channel again for now. You can show different modules by going to the first panel and using the Edit Module button. You can also use the buttons in the channels to show any module. The plus meter button is useful to see the output from any module or bus. I'll open meters for both the LFOs to show what they're sending out. I'll close the meters for now. As well as source modules, which produce signals, there are also insert modules. These take a signal and modify it in some way. Insert modules are added directly into the channels using the plus insert button. Again, I can open or close the categories using the arrow buttons. I want to add a filter into the waveforms channel, which is channel 1. So I'll open the category Audio, EQ and Filter. And then I can use the drag button to drag a filter into one of the insert boxes in channel 1. I'll set the filter to DFM1, which is a new modelled analog low-pass filter. I'll unmute the channel so we can hear it. I can also change the frequency and resonance. I'll mute the waveform channel again for now. If I show the channel titles, you'll see that on audio channels there are 4 FX send buses, just like on a mixing desk. These allow you to send audio signals around the system, particularly for using send effects. A typical example might be if you wanted to add the same delay or reverb to more than one sound source. So here, for example, I'm going to use the FX send 1 bus to add a reverb to the waveform. First, I'll send the waveform channel to the FX send 1 bus using the FX send 1 button, and I can turn up the level. Then I'll make a new channel for the FX send 1 bus using the plus channel button. In the buses category, there's an add button for FX send 1. This makes a new channel, channel 4A, with the FX send 1 bus as the source. In the FX send 1 channel, I'll add a reverb using the plus insert button. In the category audio reverb, I'll drag a JP-verb module into the FX send 1 channel. JP-verb is a lush new reverb that's been added to SuperCollider. I'll connect it to the main outputs and I'll bring up the level. Now when I unmute the waveform channel, you can hear it working. So that's a quick introduction to the TX Modular System. For the rest of the video, I'll play with some of the settings and change the sound.